But I do believe that the Democrats have put all of the ingredients, and what we're looking for now is a delicious bowl of gumbo. The roux is there. We just need the salt.
I don't believe it's gumbo.
Reince Priebus, I think you predicted 300-plus electoral votes for Donald Trump on Sunday.
All right, guys, this is ABC's Election Meltdown. Hit like and subscribe. The algorithm likes that, and we need to grow this channel. Let's get into this.
Sunday, standing by that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I look at two things.
No,
George,
in fact, I spoke to a person in the Trump campaign last night who said that their words exactly, we wanted to vomit the last 9 days.
That didn't happen.
Because he completely got off message.
Big
and
Chris,
afraid
Big
he may
Chris.
have lost it in the last 9 days.
I've been telling you a couple weeks ago where Harris was standing there on stage with over 100 Republican officials and aides to former Republican presidents,
Traitors.
making the argument, echoing the argument that Liz Cheney has made to Republican women that you can come out, put country above party, and you don't have to tell anyone
going to get you the most votes
your
tonight. I would say
And also,
you've got to go for it. I think one of the interesting things that we haven't talked about tonight was if you look at Osceola County in Florida, if you look at that county, you'll see that Donald Trump right now is winning that county. That is a very heavy Puerto Rican county. And if you go look at 2020,
what about the joke?
he lost that county by 12, 13 points. It's a pretty amazing thing. The other thing that's going on right now is Virginia is about tied with about 40 to 45% of the vote in, which is one of the things that political folks out there look at because it's a pretty quick state. They close at 7 p.m. And for a lot of us, we look at Virginia to kind of get a sense on where things are at.
It's getting a lot of
country.
attention so far as Loudoun County.
In Georgia with hundreds of thousands.
Who is this?
And here in Florida, where Puerto Ricans are the second largest Latino voting bloc. I know previous said that they were leaning towards Trump, but we have to wait till we see those results.
They did.
There's also indication that the insult on Puerto Rico could have influence on other Latino voters who have expressed outrage at the incident in solidarity with Puerto Ricans. They say an insult to one of ours is an insult to all.
Why do they think Hispanics vote in a block? Like they're a bunch of lemmings that's going to vote the way they tell them to vote. To me, the most racist thing is to act like somebody can't think for themselves. That's racist.
Salinas, where's the benchmark for Fulton County? Where does she need to be performing well? She's just below it.
She's about a point below that. And just to put in perspective,
Well,
Fulton
so of course
County
it's
is
right
100.
that under Florida's rules, this amendment failed. But you look at the numbers, 57% of Floridians actually did vote to protect abortion under the state's constitution. So it just has a higher threshold than other states. So of course it's right, this amendment failed.
Republican
but
parts of the state,
that
Donald Trump hitting his numbers just about everywhere. I haven't found many places yet where he isn't hitting where he wants to be in terms of the 538 benchmark.
They're happy about what's happening in Ohio, that they seem to be up by 10 at this point. And historically, Ohio's been in our party sort of a mental issue where if we're not winning by 10 in Ohio, we're worried about everything else. And that number looks good. There is some, they're nervous about Pennsylvania. There's a lot of vote that's out there. They know that there is a ton of early vote that hasn't even been touched. So there's no arrogance about that. But now all the attention is going to start moving to that blue wall. Virginia being tied is another issue that is getting them excited. They weren't expecting Virginia to be tied. There's 60% of the vote in, I think, about now in Virginia. The fact that that's tied and in the suburbs, Trump did not do that badly around Washington, D.C.
Could be a signal for other states.
And that campaign has a path to 270. It's looking more and more like it's got to be through that blue wall, the Rust Belt, and Wisconsin.
Let's head to Matt Gutman now. He's in Philly tonight. Matt, we're seeing roughly 22% of the vote now. Vice President Kamala Harris seems to be holding on to her lead over the former president. As we know, Pennsylvania has the most electoral votes of any swing state, Matt.
19 of them, Kira, and the math doesn't work for either candidate unless they win Pennsylvania. And Kamala Harris jumped out to a very big and early lead. That has dwindled to what we are seeing right now. And this is why there's so much focus tonight.
Trump didn't need Pennsylvania.
66% of the vote in. We'll dive into where that vote remains. In Pennsylvania at this hour, Kamala Harris holding onto a very slim lead.
Their truth is their grocery bills, their gas bills. And
exactly.
That's what it came back to on many, many people I interviewed.
And the high cost of housing. What Lindsay was showing us, I mean, she still is leading among Latino voters, but not by the margin that President Biden did 4 years ago. And that's got to be very concerning for the Democrats and the Harris campaign.
What about the joke?
Yeah, look, I would just remind over and over again that they had said from the very beginning, and they're saying again tonight, their most straightforward path is through those blue wall states. And when you look at what we're seking coming in, that certainly seems to still be the case, and I suspect is still their
Looks like it's going to be a close state.
Interesting. The battle for Pennsylvania, Donna. What do you make? of it?
First of all, I've taken my meditation early because, once again, Democrats are going to come in late. They're going to come in late in Pennsylvania. They're
never coming.
In Georgia, what's happening is that Democrats are not overperforming.
It's like a vampire.
And DeKalb and Cobb and Fulton, you have to overperform because Donald Trump is doing 4 points better in some of the rural areas. So, again, Democratic cities tend to come in late. I'm seeing that pattern once again. I have good information that Philadelphia is going to come in much stronger than in 2020. And by the way, in some of these areas, you can compare apples to apples, but Kamala Harris has had to build a different coalition. So I'm also looking in some of these suburbs, if the issue of abortion, the threat of democracy, if it worked in those areas in terms of pulling out her vote.
What I do know is this race is not going to come into focus until the early morning hours. David, she urges their team to, quote, get some sleep and get ready to close out strong.
John?
But can I say that is absolutely the message that we're hearing tonight from the Kamala Harris campaign. But I am also talking to Democrats, not precisely on the Kamala Harris campaign, but with very much a vested interest in what's happening here, who are feeling that this is looking very bad for her, who are very concerned about the trends they're seeing.
It is.
Both in those Sun Belt states, concerns about what they're seeing in Wisconsin and seeing a path. Sure, this is not over. It's certainly not over, but seeing it as a very steep and narrow path for Kamala Harris. A lot of deep concerns among Democrats, very vested in this campaign.
He stands by the process. He stands by the hard work in that state to make sure that this election was safe. And tonight, moments ago, again, we haven't projected this at ABC News, but the Secretary of State in Georgia saying this is insurmountable, that Donald Trump has won there.
And look, Brad Raffensperger is a Republican. He's elected Republican, but he is a straight shooter. No doubt about it. So, again, we haven't called it, but I would take what he said very seriously.
Let's get right to the ground.
He's got a 41,000. Trump's got a 41,000 vote lead right now. There's more to come, and there's more blue votes to come in as well. So, a long way to go, but rather be Donald Trump here than Kamala Harris
in Wisconsin. Say that again, Donald.
I would rather be Kamala Harris. Look, you know the state better than I know it, but I also know how she's getting there.
We're starting to see Trump.
Let's look at the
really rob
she's
of
never
the score.
getting there.
I mean, this is obviously not a meaningful number at the end of the night, but as of now, he's winning the popular vote by 5,600,000 votes. That will change with California. There's a lot of votes out there, but that's not a result that a lot of people saw coming, that it would even be close on the popular vote side. I think it's a function of all that rural run-up and how close he has kept it in all these other states.
Extraordinary night unfolding.
Harris
Rick Klein over at the big board.
At Howard University. Eva Pilgrim is there. Eva, let's talk about the atmosphere there.
Well, Kira, I can tell you there has been a real vibe shift here in the last 30 minutes to 45 minutes or so. We're actually starting to see some people that are leaving. There have been streams of people going. The crowd has thinned out just a little bit. You know, we've spoken with campaign sources who they tell us that they think that they can still hold the blue wall. But when we talk to people within the Democratic Party,
you need to fire that guy.
Our campaign talked about so often that they felt was going to really propel them across the finish line. We are not seeing that broad coalition at all showing up here tonight. In fact, quite the opposite. And there's going to be, I think, a lot of soul searching and a lot of questions in this campaign as to, what went wrong. That said, they are still, holding out hope. That's a very, somber Cedric Richmond there delivering that message. But as we heard from the campaign manager in this memo to the Harris team earlier tonight, stressing they expected this to be close. They do still see a path, but certainly not the path they were hoping for.
An extraordinarily narrow one mathematically at this point.
The fact that Kamala Harris is going home tonight, I think, is amateur hour. She has an obligation to speak. This pathway for her might be narrow, but it's also might be walking through the eye of a needle. She should say something to the people that adopted her as their nominee, because they were just told by the president to do so. And she's leaving the country hanging now all night. And I think it's ridiculous and it's childish.
And while, I'm not sitting here excited about the returns or the results. There's still a path. There's still a path.
And we'll come back this Wednesday morning after election night in America. We are very much looking at Donald Trump set to be the president-elect. We have not projected as a network officially. Obviously, the math is very much in his favor. It's looking increasingly mathematically impossible for Kamala Harris to catch up here, but we're being super careful with our decision desk, making sure that everything has been checked before we're willing to project.
Stand by, Rick. We're just going to pause here to project.
And we can project that Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, the key battleground state of Wisconsin. It's 10 electoral votes. I believe that then makes Donald Trump now, ABC News can project that the former president, Donald Trump, 47th president of the United States. That takes him to 276 electoral votes. There are still states on the map to be counted. Not since Grover Cleveland has someone's now become a reality. Again, the breaking news at 5:31 here in the East, former President Donald Trump, ABC News now projecting, will be the next president of the United States, and part of the path that he built along the electoral map is this blue wall that the Democrats were convinced would be Kamala Harris's best route to the presidency.
If you like this video, click on another one that I got here, and we'll see you next time.